Alright, guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Conversations with Debbie, and on this channel, you already know how it is. We talk about God, motherhood, marriage, career, and everything in that mix. So, if you've been on this channel, you know that in this month of August, we've been doing the finances in marriage series, and today we're going to be concluding on the series today. And so I'd like us to talk about something very important, which is financial compatibility. Now, if you're single, if you're about to get married, if you're already married, this particular conversation is for you. You know, a lot of times when we want to get married, whether male or female, what we tend to worry about is how much does this person make? What are they bringing to the table? How can they make my life easier? How can they make my life better? And so for us ladies, we tend to think about, is he rich, or is he hardworking? Is he comfortable? Those are very important considerations. Those are very important questions. But we tend not to take it a notch further or a step further. And the next step after, finding out if this person has a reliable source of income, if they are hardworking, if they are rich and can give you the kind of life that you're looking for, the next step is to ask, are we financially compatible? Okay. And this goes for both male and both female. And like I said, where these issues are not hashed out early, um, preferably before even saying, yes, I do, before even saying, yes, this person is who I want to spend the rest of my life with, it leads to resentment and it will destroy both the carrier of the resentment and the receiver of the resentment. Now, let's jump right into it. How do you check out these things? First of all, how do you know, okay, am I financially compatible with somebody or not? Because many times you see that you meet a guy, or you meet a lady, you meet someone and they're working, they earn reasonably, they earn in seven figures, but you notice that before the end of the month they are literally broke. We tend to make a lot of hee hee ha ha. We try to laugh about it, make a joke out of it on social media. And yes, we understand that the economy is not friendly and that purchasing power is drastically reducing, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about somebody who earns a reasonable amount of money that should be enough, but is never enough. And a lot of times we tend to overlook those things. We see that there are people that we know, as human beings, we have different financial orientations. There are people who are spenders and they don't think about tomorrow. They are here for today. They are living for today. And when money comes to their hand, all they want to do is to tick off, their wish list item, to purchase something that's been on their mind, from beginning of the month, or whenever. And sometimes they don't even take into consideration of, um, can I really afford this? They don't even take into consideration about if that item or whatever they want to do with money is a priority. Then there are those who make unnecessary risks and take premature and make premature investments. Yes, investments are good, but you have to make investments with the right orientation for the right reasons. Okay, because when you miscalculate, that investment might not really be an investment but a financial loophole. Anyway, as a single person, before you get married to somebody, and I'll try as much as possible to speak from the female perspective and the male perspective because it is general. Now, let me start from the male perspective because as a female, I tend to get carried away talking about things from my own perspective. Now, for the male perspective, you know that you are a young guy. You are probably the first son from an average family, or you came from very humble background and you have parents to take care of, you have things to do, you have circles to break. right? And you meet this Oshapapa baby, and there's nothing wrong with somebody being. Well, when I say Oshapapa, I mean, you meet this flashy girl who is about all about the fine things of life, and whilst there is nothing wrong with somebody liking the fine things of life, you need to understand, like, can I really handle this person? Is this person, so that you're not in the stage of your life where you guys are married and you're trying to plan and gather for the future, and this person is spending money, is incessant, just spending money for the flimsiest things, buying, going after the latest trends, being more interested about how they look compared to what are the actual pressing needs of the family. What am I trying to say? If as a financially responsible person, you want to look for somebody who is also like-minded like you, or who at least is reasonable enough to you know change their perspective and try to see things reasonably, try to see things from your perspective. Because, okay, so let me share my own experience. So when I was um trying to get married, and when I was single and I wasn't looking for anyway. I, I wasn't looking for, to be honest. But when I was single and I was trying to determine who is going to be, which of the suitors coming around me was going to be the person I'd settle with, there was something that I knew at the back of my mind growing up, which is that there's something we say in Nigeria: I get them before not be property, right? What it means is something that you've had before. It doesn't mean that if you do not have it, or if you cannot maintain it, if you cannot retain it, you cannot brag about, oh, I used to be rich. Do you get? If you're rich, you're rich. If you're no more, if you're no longer rich, you're no longer rich. So, one of my biggest fears, or one of my biggest concerns, was starting with money and ending in poverty. Now, and why it was my biggest fear is that was the trajectory of my parents, and that was how I grew up. I initially grew up. At the beginning part of my life, there was a lot of money, and then at some point in my life, it was just like a financial decline to the ground. There was no more money, and I grew up, as a person, knowing that I have to be intentional about my finances, because I get them before no be property. What you cannot maintain is no longer yours. Okay, so when searching for a husband, I made a point to say, what is this person's orientation about work? What is their orientation about money? How do they manage their resources? Okay, so there were so many people, and I met a lot of rich guys, honestly. The truth is, when I assessed them, I felt like this person will not last in money. The way this person is spending money, they will not last, and I don't want to suffer. So I shifted. So why I decided to get married to my husband was that I saw him as somebody that, from the time I met him, to the time I was at the point where I was trying to decide who I was going to get married to, he was constantly growing, and he was growing because of his work ethic, his financial orientation, and his relationship with money. He had a very respectful relationship with money, so that he is not somebody that is so fearful of spending that he hoards money. And he is not somebody that never thinks about the future and overspends or splurges in, unnecessary luxury. And for me, that was what I was looking for, because I needed somebody that could sustain money, somebody who understands the principle of making money and sustaining money. And why I've shared this is just to simplify exactly what I'm talking about, okay? So that when you're looking at, especially for us ladies, we like to get carried away with the guy who is driving the flashier car. Ask yourself, how much is this person making, and why are they driving this kind of car? It sounds like anti what we're looking for. It looks like the opposite of what we're looking for, which is financial comfort. But let me tell you something. There was this guy, when I met him, he was driving an expensive car. I'm not going to call the figure, but at the time I met him, that car was what, six times his monthly salary. And at the time he purchased the car, that car was probably what, 12 times or 10 times his monthly salary. It didn't make any sense to me because I thought, no, how are we going to live? Maybe you'll be earning 2 million naira, and your next dream car that you is not just a dream, it's not just a wish list that you're actively saving to purchase is what, 250 million naira. And so all of us have to starve, or I have to carry the entire financial burden because you are trying to buy yourself a car. Your priorities are not straight. And so why I'm using myself as an example is just to simplify what I mean when I'm saying that you need to look at the right things when you're trying to select a spouse. A lady who earns a certain amount of money but wears a wig that costs more than their monthly salary. I'm not saying that wearing nice things or dressing well is not good. I'm just saying that you need to watch out for signs of financial irresponsibility. Because if you cannot handle it as a man, you do not have the financial prowess to handle a financially irresponsible woman. It might be cute and nice at the beginning, but it's going to lead to resentment in the marriage. Later on, somebody might accuse you of being financially abusive. And this is the reality of life. We need to, as people, when you're trying to get married, realize one thing: financial responsibility is a must. And then understanding and knowing the financial behavior or orientation of the person you're trying to get married to is equally something that is very important that you must pay attention to if you want to enjoy your marriage, because a lot of times people don't really think about the impact of their decisions. It's as though they are not planning to last long in the marriage. You know how they say it: if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So if you're not thinking about how this person does, if this person does well with money, it's going to be a huge struggle in the marriage and it could break down. I mean, if the breakdown it causes is not always direct. A lot of times people don't even realize that that is where the problem started from. And if you do not know where you lost your way, you don't know how to find your way back home. But let's say you're married now and you've realized that this person you're married to is not doing well with money. You don't throw in the towels and walk away. It is advisable for you to try to skip the resentment. Okay, the word is not skip now, but try to manage the resentment, because it will try to build. Sometimes it will look like you're making a lot of effort for somebody who doesn't even care about if the family succeeds financially or not. It might look like you are the one working and the monkey they walk, babu they chop. And so what you need to do if you're already in this situation is to look for a good time to talk about it. Not when you are angry, not when things are heated up, not when they've offended you, but a good time. Because I like to believe that every marriage has their calm seasons. There's a good time. There's a good time when everything is going well, everybody's lovey dovey. You want to bring it up in the nicest possible way, not accusatorily, not like, oh, you always do this, I don't like this, you always do this, but coming from the angle where you're trying to let this person understand that this is for our collective good, and that the economy is not friendly and we have to be more serious with our finances. Okay, and then something else you want to do is to say, okay, you guys can come to an understanding or an agreement that maybe for expenses, children's school fees, house rent, food, electricity bills, the non-negotiables, we can have a joint account where when I bring in money, you bring in money, we bring in a particular percentage of our earnings so that that account is, you know, like untouchable and only to satisfy or pay bills. Okay. And then you could also, it works in a lot of way. Another thing that you guys could do is let the person who is more um budget oriented, if I put it that way, let the person who is more economical, let that person handle budget, so that you can have whatever money. The person who is the spender and the one who thinks you only live once should have the percentage of their earnings that is enough to spend and flex for the month, and let the person who is more frugal manage the expenses. Like I always say, there's no hard and fast rule to marry. These are just suggestions that could work for you. It's just to save yourself and save your marriage from frustrations and resentment, because the truth is that resentment is always trying to find a way into every marriage, and if you give it seats, it's going to take the entire space. Something else that can be done for married people is to agree on, so when you're married to somebody who doesn't see anything wrong with taking debts. And this is why, before you get married, you need to have a lot of conversations. Very important. It's not what is your best color, where do you like to go for vacation. Those are not conversations, because if there is money, you can go anywhere. If there's money, you can buy things in 10 colors. So I don't know why those, I believe, I want to believe that nobody asks those questions anymore. But if you still are, we are in 2025, those are not deal breakers. You need to ask questions that can help you understand, or observe people and study them in such a way that you can understand what they are thinking about money. There are people who, like for me, I do not absolutely like to borrow. Borrowing is a no-no. So, and then I'll tell you why. Um, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why, because growing up, ah, we did not grow up. I did not grow up in plenty. And one of the things that made life more difficult for my family that I observed was, whenever money came in, my parents had to settle debt first. And by the time you settle debt, you're left with nothing or almost nothing. And so I made it a policy in my life not to borrow. I make what I have enough for me. I budget and think and think. And no, don't think I didn't start this in marriage. I started this in the university. I started training myself on how to be financially responsible from my uni days. But anyway, I digress. So if you're somebody like me that does not like to borrow at all, if you marry somebody who doesn't see anything wrong with taking debts, you guys are going to have issues. And then you need to understand, to what extent, what do they think about borrowing money? You want to do birthday and you want to throw a bash, and you look at your account, you don't have money, you want to borrow, or you want to use the money in your account to do something loud and flashy. Maybe you guys are getting married and you think that it's okay to owe vendors. These are red flags. Don't ignore it, because you're going to be embarrassed. You're going to get tired. You're going to get resentful if you do not manage this things. Now, if you are married already to such a person, what do you do? We are hopeful in this conversation that you're married to somebody that is reasonable and that you can actually talk to. Because some people are married to people who have these issues, but they are not approachable. They cannot sit down and have a conversation with them. They cannot tell them anything. And I will come to, if that, I will come to that, okay? So anyway, what do you do when you have somebody who doesn't see anything wrong with taking debts? Let there be an agreement that you people must always agree before they take out any loan or collect anything on credit. Let there be an agreement that you guys have to agree, that you have to be informed. Secondly, let there be like a cap, you know, a ceiling that you cannot take any loan or you cannot take any debt or credit above this particular um, amount of money, so that it reduces financial pressure, because financial pressure can affect intimacy. Financial pressure can affect a lot of things, and you know that anything that can affect intimacy can shake and undo that marriage. So I said that to say, if you're now somebody who you cannot, a lot of times we tend to assume that a lot of problems can be solved with communication, and we forget that there are people who cannot have conversations with their spouses. That the moment they begin to talk, it is war. They take everything that the person they're trying to communicate with sees as an attack. Whether they say, oh, this is not an attack. What if we do this better? Blah, 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 blah. Some people are even scared of people they are married to. They can't even talk to them. If you find yourself in that situation, you have to be smart. You have to be smart. Damage has been done, but you have to find a way to keep money aside that nobody knows about for the rainy days. Because if you're married to somebody who is always taking out loans, that means the money they are making is never enough. They are going to be rainy days. Oh. And you have to find a way of escape for yourself and your children when that time comes. If you like this video, click on the like button, share it, it might help somebody, subscribe if you're yet to. And until I come your way next time, stay cool, stay blessed.